Playing some of your favorite games is great. It's a simple equation. You play the games and experience enjoyment in return. There couldn't possibly be a better way to do the whole video games thing, right? Well, why bother liking the games that you like when you could be feeling pressure to like other games instead? Now listen, I get it. We're always going to be looking for other games, but why does it become such a negative thing sometimes? If you don't like a popular game like Super Mario World, there's no telling how a fan of the game might react, and you gotta be careful who you share that kind of information with. But this pressure doesn't just come from other people. Oh no. Enemy number one when it comes to feeling pressure to like certain games is the person in the mirror, you. What a jerk, right? There's games you think you either would like or should like. Others bring up certain games and hoot and holler about how great they are, but ultimately it comes down to whether or not you think they may possibly be onto something. If I say Captain Novolin is the greatest game you could ever play, I'm not saying it's all of you, but there's definitely some of you who would just immediately ignore that recommendation. Thing is, there are a lot of recommendations getting slung around these days. The way things are with the internet, at this point, darn near every game that's even halfway decent has been recommended by somebody, and the more time you spend online, the more likely you are to run into these recommendations, with the World Wide Web serving as a virtual minefield of game suggestions. And because we love our retro games so much, yeah, we're total suckers for it. Something that always gets me are some of these articles or even books talking about bucket list games you need to play, which admittedly can be a nice reference point, but sometimes the titles just seem a little too aggressive. I came up with my own version here. With so many games recommended, surely you can't like all of them, right? But what you can do is feel pressure to like all of them. If something comes highly recommended, and especially if it's recommended by a lot of people, it's kind of hard to not feel like it's something you should enjoy. Something I see all the time online are people giving these super bitter explanations for why they don't like popular games, like they were assigned homework or something to play the game. Why does every single popular game need to be universally loved, and why do people feel the need to explain themselves if they don't? I've seen page-long explanations for why people don't like Majora's Mask that read like some sort of breakup letter. It's like they're worried their credibility as a retro gamer is on the line. I think giving your reasons for why you don't like a game is perfectly fine, and yeah, gamers are going to be passionate, but sometimes it comes across more like they're trying to explain why nobody should like the game as a way to further validate their personal opinion and make sure their retro gamer card doesn't get taken away. But if I like a game that you don't, what's it matter to you and what's it matter to me? My experience with the game remains the same. But like I said before, even with the, let's call it retro gaming peer pressure, we put this pressure on ourselves. So let's dive into some of the various ways this happens as well as why it happens. First up, there's a chance that we'll pressure ourselves to like a game that will lead us to actually playing the game and actually liking the game. And thus, the seed has been planted, making us more likely to pressure ourselves to like other games as well. We put pressure on ourselves to like certain games because we know there's at least a chance we actually will. I bet every single one of us can think of at least one game where we pressured ourselves to play it and then we're really glad that we finally did because we enjoyed it so much. When I was younger, I used to think I didn't like mustard, but then I forced myself to try it on a sandwich one day and ho-ho, has life been different ever since. And it's not like we're just pressuring ourselves to like games at random. There's usually some sort of personal element to it. For example, say you're a huge fan of classic side-scrolling 2D platformers. Well, the Sonic games are pretty famous for being just the ticket for fans of such a thing, so you may feel pressure to like the Sonic games as a result. Problem is, the Sonic games are actually pretty different from your typical 2D platformer, so naturally some people won't like the games, and believe me, you can read lots of angsty comments about it online. Or what if a game's in a series that you really like? You may like a series so much that you really want to like every single game in that series, or at least the most popular ones. Just feels like what a fan of the series would do. Imagine somebody saying they're a huge fan of Mario games and you say, "Oh yeah, which ones do you like most?" To which they respond, "Mario is missing." You say, "Okay, anything else?" They say, "Nope, just the one. I think the rest are trash." Or maybe you feel pressure to like a game because it's a notable game on a system that you like. It would probably feel pretty weird to be a huge fan of the N64, but not Mario Kart 64. It's considered one of the console's defining games, so it may not feel like you're taking full advantage of what the system can offer without it. Plenty of N64 fans would even say that it's essential, and that playing an N64 without Mario Kart is like plunging a toilet without a plunger. Another example of pressure to like games that I notice is the games that people have owned and or had ready to play for a long time, but either still haven't played them or beaten them. It makes sense that you would feel pressure to like a game that you have, otherwise why the heck do you have it? If a game is going to be in your collection, then it needs to justify being there, right? And what better reason could there be besides it's there because I like it? Most people have a bunch of games on their backlog that desperately want to be played, like a dog begging to be let outside. And you just keep saying, "Don't worry, I'll play you and enjoy you one day." Then there's the games that are on your midlog. That's right, I just made up the term midlog. Here's what I'm thinking. It's the games that you're in the middle of playing, either currently or maybe from weeks, months, or years ago when you started playing it and then abandoned it for whatever reason. And in a lot of cases, we're talking about retro games that are designed to be played multiple times until you beat them anyways. So certain games you're technically always in the middle of playing. The thing with feeling pressure to enjoy games that you're in the middle of is that you're looking for a way to justify the time you put into the game. The more time you put into a game, the more pressure you're likely to feel to enjoy it. Nobody wants to feel like they wasted their time. Plus, what if it's a game that you were really looking forward to? You feel pressure to like a game because you really wanted to like that game. Let me tell you, after playing Ocarina of Time back in the day, I felt an enormous amount of pressure to like Majora's Mask that followed it. This can often lead to us trying to talk ourselves into liking a game. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. And then, what about receiving a game as a gift? If you're a kid, then you'd probably feel pressure to like that game because there's a good chance you don't have much choice to play other games besides it. I got Extreme G2 for N64 as a kid, and I definitely pressured and forced myself to like that game. As adults, we're less likely to be limited on how many games we have access to, but far more likely to feel like an ungrateful jerk for not appreciating a gift that was given to us. Although I feel like most retro gamers buy their own games unless somebody they know is really in tune with their hobby. Otherwise, it can be hard to know exactly what you want. I wanted the Japanese import Tsukyuga Rentai with the spine card inside. Come on, simple ask. Sometimes it can even be hard to get yourself the right gift when it comes to retro games, of which there are many gifts that a lot of us like to give. Plus, the more expensive the game is, as can happen with retro games, the more likely you are to feel pressure to enjoy the game. And sometimes you may even just transfer that pressure from you to the game itself. Like, alright there game, you come in this big boisterous box and everybody online never shuts up about you, so show me what you're made of. You'd better impress the living bejesus out of me. But that's not really fair to the game, it's everyone else that's responsible for the hype surrounding it. It's just trying to be a good game, as is any game that you feel pressure to like. I don't think it's reasonable or healthy to feel things like frustration, resentment, or stress because you haven't experienced the same positive things that you've either heard about or read about others having. Maybe you played it and didn't like it, maybe you've never played it but will someday, or maybe you do eventually get around to liking the game for one reason or another. Either way, you've always got the games that you do love to fall back on no matter what, and remember that it's perfectly okay to say, maybe this game is great, but just not for me. Sounds pretty simple, but people have a hard time doing it. Alright, but with that said, for this video's question, I want to ask everybody, which game are you currently feeling pressure to play? And let's keep it to older games. Why are you feeling pressure to play it? And do you think you'll actually end up playing it? Perhaps this topic has convinced you to not play it? For me, it's Chrono Trigger. I was halfway through before I lost my save some years back and still need to play all the way through, which I definitely will at some point. But whatever your thoughts may be, you can leave them in the comments below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games. He's the retro bird, oh yes, and he hopes that you like what he had to say.